The reconciliation bill that passed in July of this year um, had made wide-ranging and large-scale changes to our nation's tax and social policies. With regards to SNAP, it cut SNAP by $187 billion through 2034. That amounts to a 20% cut, the largest in the history of the program. We at CBPP estimate that nationally, about 4 million people, including 1 million children, will lose all or a substantial amount of food assistance when provisions take full effect in the next few years. There are 4 ways the reconciliation bill takes food assistance away from people who need help affording food. First, the new law slashes federal funding for states' SNAP programs, forcing unaffordable costs on them and risking deep cuts, or even some states ending SNAP entirely. It does this by radically altering the structure of SNAP by shifting a share of benefit costs to states for the first time in the history of the program. States would be faced with large and volatile costs and will struggle to absorb these new costs. Most states will face costs between 5 to 15% of total benefit costs. Just to give you a sense of how large those are, for California, a 5% match amounts to $600 million a year. At a 15% match, that would amount to $1.8 billion a year. The second way that the bill harms people who need help affording food, it takes food assistance away from millions of people by expanding harsh and ineffective work requirements, as was mentioned earlier. For decades, SNAP has had a work requirement. If you were a working age adult not living with a child, you could only receive SNAP for 3 months out of a 3-year period, unless you were able to document that you worked 80 hours a month or that you had an exemption, such as a disability. This additional paperwork each month that individuals and families had to fill out and caseworkers had to process was a major administrative hurdle that deterred participation in the program. The new law puts millions more at risk of losing benefits. Now, parents and caregivers with older children in the household and older adults aged 55 to 64 have to meet this work requirement. The law also eliminated exemptions for veterans, people experiencing homelessness, and those who have aged out of foster care. In California alone, we estimate that hundreds of thousands of people will be at risk of losing some amount of SNAP due to the expansion of work requirements. The third harmful effect that the law will have is that it denies food assistance to many people who are immigrants living lawfully in the United States who have been granted humanitarian protections by the US government. Those affected would include refugees, people granted asylum, certain survivors of domestic violence, and certain victims of sex or labor trafficking. It's important to remember that people who lack documentation were and continue to be ineligible for SNAP. Fourth, and finally, the bill cuts food benefits by preventing SNAP from keeping pace with the cost of a healthy diet and increases paperwork for households to prove their other expenses.